pay the loan.
Yeah.
But women are so loyal that she will sell her other assets to meet that obligation. And I think some people take that advantage of gender to go and cannibalize the women. We need to be serious.
Before I let you go, Doctor, there, you alluded to something that I want to just dig a little bit deeper. What did Ntandikwa fail to cure that Emyoga is actually going to cure? When you look at Emyoga, yes, there was a little bit of media backlash here about Emyoga, but they're success stories. Looking at the ghetto or the slum economies with the Emyoga model, what do you see, Doctor, from your lenses as an economist, vis-a-vis before it actually came through? Because we had quite a lot of products, the youth livelihood product, there was a lot that was brought. But for Emyoga, the same noise that was made about it, I want to believe that it's the same kind of impact or understanding the people at the bottom of the pyramid possibly understood. Maybe my lenses are wrong. What do you see from your lens?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's a question of which parameters do you use for success. And this is a message to everybody involved in the microfinance industry.
Yeah.
It's not about the volume of savings and the loans you have given out. It's about the impact you have made on the communities. So the success of any of these you didn't just lend for the sake of lending. As we've seen these people here, I will tell you their stories. Yeah. You want to show evidence that when we came in here, this woman and her tailoring industry had one sewing machine. Now they have more. So they have moved on. They have transitioned from $1 a day to 2 or 3, which is what we call, what is the impact you want to make? Now the danger with the politics, we want outreach. So when we publish numbers, we say we have so far supported 150,000 borrowers.
But the impact?
The impact, you don't even want to report on that one. What is the effectiveness? Have you given them resilience? That even when a drought comes, they are able to sustain themselves and continue living on. What is the sustainability of the institution itself? When I see the turnaround of SACCOs, there is no institutional sustainability. And I think that also comes back to the issue of the politics. Did Emyoga have to come with its own SACCOs? When we already had SACCOs for women empowerment, SACCOs for the youth, SACCOs, when are we going to get to a level to say, build one large SACCO so that whichever other government initiative that comes, we leverage that SACCO? I want to believe BRAC doesn't form a branch for education, a branch for goats, a branch for chicken. The same BRAC delivers on all. When we created the agricultural credit facility, it didn't require new banks. It went through the same banks. So how do we change the narrative to say sustainability of these SACCOs? To build a SACCO and sustain it is not easy. So when you have built one, put every other responsibility to it so that it can have volumes to move, impacts to make, and longevity to look to.
Wow. Well done. Rachel, that brings me to what earlier you alluded to. You said people are being given money, but they're not empowered enough. Just to quote it right, the participation, are they enabled before they're given credit? And that alludes to what Doctor is saying, that the institutional structures. When you look at the slum economies, we don't understand structures. I'll be honest with you, when you're in the ghetto, they will say, Oluzungu lungi, sign here, sign there, come back tomorrow, muje mukaga. There is a way it trains, and the mindset is not ready to just come through back and forth, and at times they fall off. And out of the 3 Ugandans who have moved out of poverty, 2 will slide back when one keeps going ahead. Let's talk about the vehicles of information. Are we using the right vehicles to reach out to these people? The models of communicating to them to create awareness and sensitization. Are we using the right models, the right communication tools, the language per se?
Okay, right. Thank you. That is a very important aspect. Communication, awareness, sensitization. These are very, very critical aspects in financial inclusion or the money journey.
Yep.
You asked whether the right channels are being used, the right methods, the right strategies. I'll say we're trying, but I'll also take you back to what I mentioned earlier. Do we understand the language that these people speak? Do we understand the nature of organizational structures in those communities. These are people who will tell you, why are they telling you Luzungu Lunji? They're telling you because you're not speaking their language.
Their languages.
You've not understood their way of life. I can tell you that the slum communities have the highest social capital. They have the highest social ties that we oversee. How do we use those ties? How do we use the economic activity that they do to bring them together to listen to the opportunities that have been brought forward? Microfinance Center will come and say, we've started yoga. Have you broken that down? Have we broken down the pillars of the parish model to these people and share with them, break down the opportunities, the value proposition, and the how? I'll take from my friend Ramadan, economics that works. How will it work? It will work when you actually involve the beneficiaries throughout the process. Like I said earlier, we sit in high-level places and make plans for the communities that we're going to serve. But can we use the right language? Can we go and ask them what language they understand, what they understand about money? How do they understand ISACO? How do they understand savings? How do they understand credit? When we look at the slum dwellers, for instance, or the informal communities, these are people who have unique characteristics. They also have unique ways of, sometimes we sit here and say these people are poor, the poverty levels are low, gender levels, the gender inequality is too high. And yet when you look at the statistics, there is actually a parity. But what am I saying? I'm saying that let's go in and then come out and take decisions when we know exactly what we're going to tell them, when we know exactly what language they understand, what products. Microfinance Support Center, microfinance service providers need to go to those communities and interact with them and experience their way of life. Then we shall be able to treat them correctly instead of assuming.
Well, thank you so much. You can give that a round of applause. I felt that. As Omuntu Awansi, I feel the inclusion aspect needs to start from the thought processing before it comes down. This is what you need to do. Those following this conversation at home on your different televisions and those online, we want to thank you. If you have any question, just drop it. Microfinance Support Center, the hashtag is there, 20 years. I'll pick it a little later and then we'll ask the team here to respond to this. James, my people, the guys in the ghetto, we always believe that a loan is a way out. I'm going to go get a loan, I'll start up a small business, maybe a boutique, maybe a small poultry feed. Is a loan a way out? And have you as institutions sat down and broken it down to them, that they understand it before they get into it? Or they're just excited to get the money? And if you do so as BRAC, how do you do it uniquely that we can borrow a reef?
Yeah, I think BRAC is aware of your question, I would say. Because I was telling that BRAC Bank has two products broadly. They have so many products. Of course, a bank should have many products. But all products you can simplify in two types. The first type is a microfinance, for which you have to be a group member. The other category is SME, small enterprise loan. Or you want to loan from a bank, where you take your car, and then go to bank, ask for a loan. But we are not talking for those people. We are talking for ghetto economy. So for the ghetto economy, when we are talking, we are going to save these people, we also have to save MFI. So to get those people microfinance, for the microfinance that level, it requires to be a member of a group, because those MFIs also need security of the loans. So BRAC repayment rate is 99%. Some of it is it should surprise. You can't, like reaching to repayment rate 99%. In what case it is possible? It is the selection process, it is the repayment culture, it is that you are serving the right people with the right product. When it happens, they will also be grateful, and they will be also responsible to repay those loans. So, as you definitely BRAC. If I bring that back issue of the UPG, ultra poor graduation, we serve one people, but it follows a household approach. Because even a person with disability lives in a household. So when we measure the poverty, all those things, the measurement of the graduation process, those assesses both the individual indicators and also the household poverty and other welfare indicators. So I think both is important. You have an African proverb that if you want to go somewhere quick, go alone.
Oh, yeah.
But if you go long away, go in a team. So both is important depending on the situation.
Okay. Thank you so much, James. Dr. Fred, now this brings me back to how we are organized on the ground. We are in clusters, groups. You'll hear a lot of association when you get in the ghettos and in the slum economy. When do we graduate to cooperatives? Can we actually graduate to cooperatives? And what are the benefits that are there? Because oftentimes we talk as circles, we talk as groups, but we never want to graduate to be cooperatives. Is it something that can work in our generation? The minister was here and he alluded to something back in the days when some of us were not actually here. But now in our generation, we have overly been in groups as financial groups. We have our bibina on the ground. It's very challenging. There are times they will say, let me tell you how our groups work, just to bring you to speed. So they will say, this week it's Andrew getting, next week it is James getting, next week it's Rachel, and the next week it's Fred, and the circle comes back. Microfinance support centers try to demystify that, trying to build structures that they could possibly understand how a better group could work. Can we graduate from groups to cooperatives? And what are the benefits that could come to the people in the ghetto economies if they do that graduation?
Thank you. It's really an interesting narrative. Maybe some squirrels will never graduate into the size of a dog. They are meant to stay that way. But in medical practice, and this is why I cross things, they have things they track really for growth. Height for age, weight for age. This child is growing, but is the child normal? There is a bracket they should be in. But because you're expecting this child eventually to grow into an adult human being. I have been in universities teaching for 25 years, and people think I should be a professor, whatever now. But I'm not going to graduate into a professor because I'm not in that line. Me, all my university work for the last 25 years has been part-time. And part-timers cannot graduate into professors. And I just like it that way. I want to be, mobile division, mercenary, in wherever I go. But I find it more convenient now. Why are we not graduating circles into cooperatives? Is the narrative again going into the legalistic and the politics and the policy approaches? Cooperatives feed from societies. Now, if you cannot call circles a society, then they are on a different track. They will not graduate into a cooperative. Because a cooperative really picks from the societies. And that is where we go back into the legal. That most circles are registered by the Ministry of Trade. Yet the Ministry of Trade is supposed to register cooperatives, which cooperatives can do any other thing. Growing yams, selling pineapples, fishing, it can be a cooperative with no money attached to that functionality. But the moment a cooperative decides to go into the money business, then it should be licensed by UMRA to become a circle. But remember now, because it originates from the cooperative side, then it has sure trajectory to grow into a cooperative. So it's a legal issue that we need to address, because there is no way we will secure this multiplicity of circles if we can't allow them to collate at a certain level into a cooperative. I grew up on coffee, but me and my mother and my father, we belonged to a society that became a cooperative, that became a bigger thing, and eventually there was a cooperative bank. Now I hear people want to start a cooperative bank without cooperatives and societies below it. So the knowledge needs to come back, and I want to get back to the issue of data and knowledge. How many circles do we have? If there were societies rooting from there, we would know them. But now we can't know. And I think that is where I really cherished the legacy of the late Kisamba Mugerwa. His NPA board was executive with 5 members. But he said, I cannot make some of these decisions with 5 members. Through his ingenuity, he created what he called an expanded NPA board with 35 members. Now you can imagine what additional wealth he would get before any decision was made. So I think we need to resolve some of these legal things. We are not going to succeed with everybody forming a circle. Now you are just, this is our rotational circle here. What you've forgotten, I would be in another circle of border riders, and we're also doing something else there. I'm also in the circle of Fathers Union. We're also doing some, I get overstretched. And now when I go to BRAC has no ability of knowing my credit worthiness, because it's so scattered in different portfolios and obligations. And I will end with the minister's remark here. We call it microfinance. You can call it microcredit. My professor told me it is microdebt. We never bring up that aspect. You think you're helping them, but actually majority of the money lenders are looking at, now you owe me money interest. The minister here mentioned his budget includes 5 trillion of interest payment. I want to believe Honorable Senda here is wondering, what is this? His entire budget was 5 trillion, or less than that. Now the minister here, before he even begins to budget, 5 trillion is interest payment on debt. So the moment we begin to say, are we not over-indebting the poor? Are we really giving them the money to trajectorily move out? Because there are some people in this space literally to make money out of the poor. How do you get those out? Regulation. Umrah is here. But Umrah will get a mix-up. Somebody will tell me, I'm not a circle. I'm a cooperative. To clean up that is a legal requirement. So for me, regulation is key. I know all about insurance, but the only time I've paid for insurance is for the fear of the police. Now you know which insurance I pay for. I'm only emphasizing the point of government. Where government is, people behave. Even when they don't know why. We must bring government back forcefully, regulate, enforce, to clean up as we bring the poor. Otherwise, people will cannibalize the poor and not support them.
Wow. Thank you so much, Doctor. This conversation is live on Twitter. I see a couple of your tweets. I'll respond to them a little later, but let's keep them coming. We're discussing how we can leverage the economies, whether the slum or the ghetto economies, to come up and they spur to greater heights. Dr. Rachel, how do we break the fear? Someone on Twitter has just sent a very, very critical tweet, and just to read exact words. This is an inclusion aspect. And someone says, Chamagero, thank you so much for the conversation, but again, we are not included. There is no sign language person out there. I am disabled. I am watching on TV. I've seen the ghetto and slums where I stay, but there is no sign language. And you're talking about finance, inclusion still, meh. It comes back and says, my issue here is we have fear to access credit to change our storyline. And doctor, these are my people. You'll forgive me the language they use on Twitter because that's how we write on those streets. But what I've picked from her is there is no inclusion here. Even while you're speaking, there is no sign language to include those in the ghettos who are, disabled. But the fear of accessing credit is eminent on the ground. I'll be honest with you. The way the banking halls are designed, the way the loan officers dress up and the language they speak, the ambience, when you go in there, the way these, the bank attendants talk to you, you seem to be an alien in that particular banking hall. So how do we make sure that these facilities are user-friendly for us, abantu bawansi?
Thank you, moderator. I'll start with, you asked how do we break the fear? How do we stop the fear generally? When we are talking about money, when we're talking about finance for all, when we're talking about financial inclusion, it's important to start, you break fears, and in any conversation or whatever situation it is, by beginning to talk about things. We are here, but how many forums are there to just freely talk about money, share experiences, share experience about debt, candid conversations about money, about people's fears, about their understandings. That's the way we begin to break the fear, talking candidly about it. I like that the minister came here and candidly told us that we have a debt of 5 trillion casually.
Keyword is casually.
Casually. That triggered so many things in our minds as the people of Uganda, but also as people who are talking about inclusion. So where are the priorities? This casually. My point I'm driving to here is, you talk about the banking halls. Banks are not the only providers of financial services. Are people aware that there are alternative providers of financial services in this space? Just within the formal framework, we have the commercial banks, we have microfinance institutions, we have micro-deposit taking institutions, we have development banks, we have alternative providers who are providing private equity, who are providing, who are investing in businesses that are focusing on social returns, that are doing social good within societies. Do people know about these alternatives? If we feel we're intimidated, even us who are dressed properly, sometimes you go to the bank and it's just too hectic. Sign here, sign there, sign this. Is it still relevant? When the entire world is going into a digital space, efficiency, turnaround, and making things fast and quick and comfortable. We're here talking about financial inclusion. It's about convenience. It's about affordability. It's about access. It's about usage. Is this happening? Can we boldly come to have these conversations and say what is happening and what alternatives are available, and educate the public on these alternatives? I participated in a research that opened my eyes to alternative financing, and I began to look at the formal financial institutions differently, because there are people who have money, there are these grants, there are these foundations that are doing a lot of good in terms of understanding different segments of society, their needs, and then giving them money piecemeal to solve their problems, but also providing auxiliary services like training, awareness, understanding of how money is supposed to grow, understanding return on investment, understanding marketing, branding, We also, the dancers here, they didn't have to say much, but we knew they are promoting the agenda of the government. Okay? So that is what we need to be doing. We need to speak candidly. We need to speak about alternatives. Fred here talked about data, information, research. The late Right Honorable Speaker, RIP, was telling parliamentarians, come to parliament with data, with research, because that is what is going to treat the right problem, as opposed to assuming. So, Mr. Moderator, we need to talk candidly. We need to recognize the gaps the challenges, the needs of those specific segments, and then we come to say this is the solution, and also include the different personalities. The person with disability, I think those are lessons for us. Do we take away lessons from engagements that we have, and what do we do with those lessons and sharings from the public? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We apologize to those with impairments. We really apologize. On behalf of Microfinance Support Center, we apologize, and that will be dealt with in the next time. So, James, are we bankable? Are the people from the ghetto economies, are they bankable? And if we're not bankable, what should we do to be compliant, to the, to be credit worth in a way? Your mic is off.
I think it's okay. So, so I think to be honest and very straightforward, like people living in ghetto area, slum area, are normally not bankable, to be honest.
Why?
Now that's all the policy force should be and is. But the question is, how far did we succeed? That how can we make them bankable? So, because bank gives loan, and then bank also have to survive. I'm coming that point again. So, I think there need as Dr. Fred says, that actually there need some transition time, like how these people can be can enter into formal banking system. And why not in between, we talk about these alternative sources of finance, and then also alternative process of financing. So I conclude with these 2 points, 2 highlights. One is alternative sources of finance, and then alternative process of financing. So sources. So for people living there, for them need an alternative sources. Talk about VSLA, talk about microfinance, but again, don't forget, BRAC average loan size is 1.2 million only. Can MFI go to that down? Yeah. So that's not easy by any MFI. BRAC did it, but that's kind of a learning point. So go to that low to them, to their door, and make your product, your financial product in that way, so that they can get it. The second point, the process. We did a study in Liberia. What we did, a group of SME owners, we just gave a loan. A group of SME owners, we gave a loan, and then enterprise owners, and we trained them, business management and customer care. We found amazing difference. The people with the training on business management and customer care, their customer number increase, retention of ongoing customer increase, likelihood of loss decrease, and their overall capital and performance increase. So when we are talking about microfinance, let's not forget microfinance alone will not work. Believe me, it is not what I am talking. It is Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee in 2015 already attested, concluded that microfinance has a little impact, but not transformative. So to make it transformative, it needs to leverage with other sectors. That's why I liked your title, that leveraging microfinance to spur ghetto economy. It needs a leverage. That's the policy implication.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for my panel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give them a clap. Doctor, I saw you were banning. You wanted to supplement on something he was raising here when it got to something to do with policy, especially to alternative sourcing of finance.
Yeah, I think it is linked up to the policies, and policies really are at 2 levels. There are policies government will make, and quite often we emphasize those policies and we discuss them in such public spaces. But there are also institutional policies. Now, for most of the regulated financial institutions, like where Bank of Uganda is, The governance demands that those institutional policies are there and they are speaking to people. And I think James raises an important point. Quite often, customer care is never profiled.
Yeah.
You just want to teach people how to assess a borrower and then rate their risks and decide whether to give them money or not. You don't even tell them this is where you are risky. If you can go and improve in this area, you just say you are not eligible, and back home they go. But if you have customer care that really builds into this, so you want to also to talk about the lower level of institutional policies that are needed, and then the linkage between the two is critically important. We have all learned from COVID. As soon as COVID hit, Bank of Uganda issued guidelines to the banks to restructure the loans. And for some time, people were told, go and talk. You can be able to agree with your banker whether or not to pay the interest or only the interest. Agree with them. But they gave them that liberty to go back into a conversation. And some of these are still running. Now, who stood in for bottom of the pyramid? They also had borrowed.
Yeah.
And when COVID came, we sent all of them home. We even gave them food for just a week, yet we locked them down for 8 months. What happened between them and their lenders down there? We have no idea. So some of them may never recover. So even as we talk about alternative sources of funding, policies do matter. As I've said, regulation is critical, but policies are even more important both at the higher level but also at the institutional level to manage the relationship between the borrower and the lender. Yeah. I think we are missing a lot there. And all we are interested in is pumping money into these villages. Government releases another trillion. Government releases another this. Sustainability of these institutions. Thank God, MSC is celebrating 20 years. If I can go back and find circles that MSC started with, how many are available? So are we interested in the sustainability of the institutions? So a lot of work needs to be done, really, before we even sign the first check. If I was Minister of Finance, well, the Minister of Finance is the President, and that I'm not about to be. But we can have this conversation with him. Before the money is signed off, these are the things that need to be put in place if we are to get the impact that we really need.
Okay.
In case you've just joined us, our dear listener, we are having 3 functions taking place at Hotel Africana in Kampala. We are looking at the 3 functions in one. One is that Microfinance Support Center is commemorating 20 years of financial inclusion. And the other thing is that they have done that in the commemoration of the Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa, who was once the head of this microfinance center. And also the other one is that they have launched Emyoga Circles on the same day. The function was opened by the Honorable Minister Matia Kaseja, who the words we're going to look at after the panel. And now they have gone into a panel that is moderated by Andrew Chamagero. And the panelists include Dr. Fred Mhumza, is the expert economist. Dr. Rachel Mendra Katorogo is the head finance department, Makerere University Business School. They also have Mr. James W. Cash is the head of operations, research, Black Independent Evaluation and Research Cell in Africa. The topic they're talking about is leveraging microfinance to spur the slum and ghetto economy. Keep it UBC. For more details, we're going back to Hotel Africana, but you will join us on 776-511-426, and you share your opinions on what you think about the government loans, how to access them, and also the interest. Keep it UBC. We're here to inspire Uganda.
And thank you so much, everyone. Ivan Asimwe, the General Secretary of Uganda Cooperative Alliance. Before I make my comments, I would want to correct you, Mr. Moderator. You asked a question that when shall a SACCO graduate into a cooperative? And I got touched. A SACCO is a savings and credit cooperative organization. It is a form of cooperative that provides financial services to its members. I wanted you to get it very well. And I also had a doctor trying to to get an answer to that, but he was not clear because a SACCO is a cooperative. I think that one is clear. Fine. Now, first of all, I want to thank MSL for the support in regards to financial inclusion. And I want to thank the government for the PDM. This morning I was on TV talking about the role of cooperatives in the parish development model. When you critically look at the PDM, it's very clear it's a multi-sectoral strategy for creating socio-economic transformation by moving the 39% household from the subsistence economy to money economy, using the parish as an epicenter for development. When you define a cooperative, it has those connotations: the socio-economic transformation and the multi-sector approach. So when you are talking about this, the two are the same. The SACCO, being a savings and credit cooperative organization, plays a key role in financial inclusion. However, the approach here is a problem, because a cooperative is supposed to be allowed to grow organically. It needs organic growth for it to be strong and sustainable. We have very strong cooperatives in this country. Moderator, when you were talking, it looks like you are looking at SACCOs as VSLOs. We have very strong SACCOs. My friend, Honorable Kuraija, will tell you. Wazalendo today, I was for their AGM, is at the level of even acquiring a commercial bank. It is bigger than a bank. So when we are talking about SACCOs, moderator, a SACCO, we now have very strong institutions, which are SACCOs. So they don't need to graduate like my name is Ivan. You cannot say, when shall Ivan graduate into Ivan? He's Ivan, period. So that is it. So we need to change the approach. The approach matters. And the message matters. When you go outside there, I have had meetings with the MSL. When you go outside there, what message have you packed to the population? If the moment you go there and say that you form SACCOs and we give you money, that is not a SACCO. Because a cooperative follows the 7 cooperative principles and values, and it follows the cooperative ideology. The moment you go astray or you go ultra-vires that definition, then it changes from a cooperative to something different, and that is where we get challenges as government and as practitioners. Now, the other issue, Dr. Mohape talked about the cooperative bank, and he's very right. For cooperative bank to grow and become sustainable, it must be a bottom-up approach, not a top-down. And you need structures that are strong enough to sustain it. And when you look at the PDM and you talk about the financial inclusion, then ideally for money to trickle down to the farmers, we need to have a cooperative bank. But a cooperative bank that is allowed to organically grow and then serve the members. Then lastly, I want to give a personal testimony. I was a general manager of a SACCO for 7 years, and I worked in SACCOs for 12 years. But I want to tell you, Microfinance Support Center, there is a time when I was stuck as a general manager. I was employed. I was just 2 days old. So I reached there. The SACCO had working capital. You can't believe. SACCO having a working capital of 500 shillings, a whole SACCO, because they had swindled the money. The next day, a member comes to withdraw 200,000. Can you imagine you're a general manager of such an institution? So running away was the best alternative. But I had to go to Microfinance Support Center. I sat with them in Kabale then. I explained my case. They couldn't believe that this thing works. I was requesting 400 million. They said, no, we can only give you 20. You are a very small SACCO. I paid it in 6 months. I graduated to 100 million. I graduated 200 million to 500 million. To date, the SACCO has a savings portfolio of 10 billion and a loan portfolio of 14 billion with 24,000 members. So this is what we mean, the approach. They did not start that SACCO, they only supported it to grow. So what is needed for these institutions to grow organically, it is not the role of government to start. It is the role of government to guide and support. Then let the communities themselves initiate the program. That's when you have a strong and sustainable SACCO or cooperative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivan. Before Brian, Doctor, do you want to respond to this?
It's not actually a response. It is to emphasize Asimwe's point, which he has done himself. He agrees with us when you asked, when are SACCOs going to grow into cooperatives?
Actually, for clarity, I use the word groups under what we call associations. Not SACCOs, but groups. Katwe Bikers Association Group. And then you give us the hierarchy of how possibly they could graduate.
That is even better, but I don't think inserting the word cooperative makes a SACCO a cooperative. And he himself has said they must grow organically. They must adhere to the 7 principles. This is the question we are saying. These SACCOs, by just having the word cooperative in their name, does not make them cooperatives. And we need to invest in that area. How do we make sure you don't come as a politician and say, you form a SACCO, I give you money? That's not a SACCO. Or rather, it is a SACCO, but not a cooperative. So we all agree with him. We have an issue. When are SACCOs going to grow into cooperatives? Adhere to the 7 principles, be formed and grow organically from societies to a cooperative and now into a cooperative bank. Until we address those issues, we'll walk around with things that call themselves cooperatives when they are actually not.
Okay. Thank you so much. And just to be clear, I am aware that Exodus is equally doing good. The one of Uganda Police, Wazalendo is doing good as a SACCO, and there are other remarkable SACCOs in this country that are at different layers. And Asima, I agree with that. Brian, where is the next question? Brian, Afande has a question here. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Victor. I'm into media, and one of the panelists raised an issue of dissemination of information. From the media perspective, we have a challenge that most of these, the players in the financial inclusion endeavors, sometimes they are, I wouldn't want to say aloof, but they are hard to reach, hard to approach, and I would request the leaderships of maybe MSC and other players in this sector to avail avenues where the media fraternity can work together with you to come up with comprehensive information programs that reach down to the people that they are supposed to serve. Then my other issue or question goes to the doctor, the lady from the Securities Exchange. I believe Securities Exchange plays a big role in the development of the economy. And yes, we are championing saving, but where is the money going to go after saving? Has the Securities Exchange come up with a program that grows opportunities for these SACCOs, the people who have their money, to be able to play on the Securities Exchange? Because currently, I would say Uganda is one among the top innovative countries in the region or in the continent. And we take a big position on the global scene in the world of innovation. But many of these innovations stop at the drawing paper. Getting financing to even produce the minimum viable products is hard. let's face it, many of the ghetto youth have very wonderful ideas, but they are cut out because they're not going to be able to develop the product very well to meet the market. The growth to market strategy is very capital intensive and requires a little bit of patient capital. Most of the microfinance or SACCOs, they give you money, they expect you to start making some installments by the next week. So I'm wondering, is there a strategy from the Securities Exchange to, remedy that? Thank you.
Okay, let's have another question so that we can respond to them at once.
Mr. Moderator, thank you, and thank you, our panelists. Mine is an observation. Most of the circles have not grown to the pace at the pace we would want them to grow for one major reason: our mindset to saving. Actually, the attitude of many Ugandans is of reception. They expect to receive, not to save. And that's why every financial inclusion approach from the Bonabaga Gawale, name them, is reception. Nipe. None wants to deny himself or herself a coin for another day. And if I were the chart, I would draw for you that majority of the circles, if they are imagine they are a basket, what comes in is a small, very malnourished rod that brings in money into the circle. And the exit is a very huge tarmac rod, meaning people are simply taking out of the circle rather than bringing in. What has the secret behind the survival and the growth of Wazalendo is policy. We had to go into forceful saving. Voluntary failed. We had to force from source. The money is yours, but we take it from you into SACCO and you operate a savings account. You have your own ATM, you can access it. We also put a limit how much you can withdraw, so that the SACCO can grow. Now that's why we are threatening to have a bank. So the challenge to Dr. Muhumuza, who talks to us most of the time, and to my brother from cooperative, can we take the gospel about saving a notch higher? To expect, and that's why the notion, Dr. Muhumuza, you hear, form a circle and I give you money. The desire is you want these people to access money, yes, but you can't give it to an individual. Hence the reason you encourage them to come together. But some come together conveniently so they can access this money you have brought in, and the end of the circle is there. Until we deal with the mindset, we are in a vicious circle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give that a round of applause. The mindset is a key issue.
Thank you very much, our moderator. My name is Deon Sedeko Kayua, a farmer from Kalangala and Zirobwe. I'm here because of Dr. Kisamba's family, because I was linked to him from the DP times up to the time of his death. We were together. We want to appreciate Microfinance Center for remembering him. He was really a stout man, an intelligent man, and an asset to the nation. The advice we can give, emulate him, how he was operating. He was down to earth as a person. He was a farmer, a real farmer, at his home, who could sit down with the farmers in their small gardens and we eat with them and give them advice. He was not a pretender. He could advise how we should develop. In your systems, I tried to follow, because I've been chairman of Cooperative Bank. I was the director of Coffee Marketing Board and East Mengo chairman. I'm a cooperator. So if we have to succeed, let us organize our system, particularly the microfinances, with linings to organic, to natural cooperation. Let us assist these people to plan their individual lives. Let us not give them money because they have written a proposal. Let us try to look at their families. Let us try to include family planning in our systems. They are writing very good proposals with 30 kids behind, with several women and so on and so on. Can we be an instrument of change to them? This is what Kisamba was telling them. Please, for what? This money, why do you want it? Where do you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, as a family? These circles complicate issues. They circle, they keep together, but individually, let us go down to these people, what they are doing. In Kalangala, where I am, we are now on palm oil, but it's changing the society. Everybody is singing palm oil. Can you find alternatives, the crops which can grow and bring in money quickly, but at a long time also? As of now, Microfinance Support Center, I would advise that we have paradigm shift to our communities, because they don't know what to do. You are giving them money, but for what? What are the skills down there? What are the activities down there? For example, in Bamunanika, where I come from, what is our production? How are the individuals surviving? Cassava, Monde, are they really break-even at a family level? Microfinance Support Center, I think we must go at that level. Sit with these people and see how we can go. Otherwise, thank you very much for remembering my brother. We should do it, I think, annually, and translate his works. He wrote good books. What I saw here is just a small thing of his mind. Try to put it in Luganda, any other language. He has a lot of knowledge. He left a lot of advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mzee Kaiwa. Round of applause for Mzee Kaiwa. We could have a question from this as well, and then we shall respond to that and we call it a day. Yes, boss.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and I thank very much the experts that were brought to our guidance in these discussions. Dr. Mumuza, you are really doing a good job, and I would wish you to add that one who does not know where he comes from, where he is, cannot know where to go. We have to study the genesis of our country since its independence. And I have had the idea of what we call cooperatives as a form of business organization compared to other forms of business organization like a partnership, like companies, and like corporations like Micro Support Center is a corporation initiated by government after analyzing the problem for microfinance for the benefit of the common person who is an active poor. I think we need to look at Uganda as a country since independence compared to other countries like Tanzania, Kenya, and even our colonial masters who developed this idea of cooperatives in this country when they were still here. The cooperatives were initiated by colonialists as a result of having identified the problem. What I know for sure, people must have problems defined in the context of their own causes, effects, and then prescribe solutions. Dr. Muhumuza, I think you are there. Now, Uganda's problem since independence has been what? So that we can define the problems in the context of Microfinance Support Center to address government policies as a pace setter. Government is a pace setter. And I was listening to the minister, who is a minister for finance and economic development. What policies does he have for an institution like this, which was established by government? We are glad today Micro Support Center has organized a function for us to remember our veteran politician, Kisamba Mugerwa, Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa. I knew Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa personally. I worked with him, and right from his birth to the time he died, I was seeing a man who had the conception of what Uganda should be. He was at one time a minister. He was at one time the chairman of the planning authority. But we are recognizing him today because of his last stage, where he worked in the Micro Support Center. And we are here because Kisamba Mugerwa made his fundamental contribution in the Micro Support Center. Why? Because wherever he worked, he was not in authority to determine the right policies. He went, as the minister informed us, he went to the Microfinance Support Center at his serene stage, and he wanted his dreams realized. And we are here today to remember him. That means if we had problem definition at independence,
we could have
and we had the right prescription of policies, such a policies that created cooperatives in the initial stage of the colonialists, we would not be talking the way we are talking. I come from Masaka, where cooperative movement had gathered momentum. I looked at my brother, Gerard Sendaula, who was Minister of Finance at one time. And he created a program called the PEEP, Poverty Alleviation Program. What can we say about it today? Today we are talking of parish development model. Without considering why PEEP failed, why Emyoga have failed. And now we go on infatuating programs without going to the details and analyzing why the programs are failing.
Thank you.
So my comment is not a question, it's an observation, but to draw this gathering to focus properly.
Thank you.
So that we define our problems, we see the causes that bring them, and also prescribe solutions that can really help us.
Thank you.
Microfinance Support Center carry on that.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, because of time, allow me, we'll only take that. I think, Dr. Rachel, you're going to respond. There was something to do with communication and the vehicles usage from the back.
Thank you, Brian. The question, I didn't get the name, but I know the young man is a journalist. He asked about the opportunities for circles in the Uganda Securities Exchange. I think the issue or question that he raises is also an indication that many of us are not aware of what these institutions actually do. The Uganda Securities Exchange is an entity that provides investment opportunities for companies to list, raise money, and of course there are plans to how do we engage the smaller businesses that are the majority in this country, and how do we expose this opportunity for them to raise money. My point here is, I think, to the journalists, we need to make more noise, as I said, about the opportunities out there for financing businesses, but also the opportunities or option for savings and investments as individuals. And the Uganda Securities Exchange, or the investment space or the capital markets, provides an alternative or option for investment, and also an opportunity to secure a financial future of individuals, but also an opportunity for institutions or companies to raise money. So I think a lesson there is we're not shouting out loud enough as entities that are supposed to support the savings culture, the attitude, providing information, and also the lesson there is to encourage entities to work collaboratively or create partnerships that are going to foster this conversation further and seeing impact therein.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Fred, what are your parting shots?
I think a parting shot is really where we need to begin. We have heard from many people that the late Kisama Mugara represented and reflected many faces. He was minister, he was an academician, he was chairman of NPA. Why have we picked on MSC? But even in MSC, why have we picked on the ghetto? And so going back to where his passion was, you saw him go down to the ghetto. I think it speaks to, are we really addressing Omuntu wa wansi? I think that's what he really wanted to understand. And has come out of this conversation when somebody says, you have no person for sign language. Already giving us an idea, we don't know Omuntu wa wansi, we didn't provide for them. But also you have heard others saying, can we translate the languages? Omuntu wa wansi is not English speaking. Is Swahili, is Lugbara, is Ateso, is Acholi. And this is clearly explained in our numbers. Educational records that I saw, sadly they are 2017, and I've asked somebody to update them for me, that only 60% of those who begin P1 sit P7. So it is English, you can hear them say, that is your English. And of those who sit P7, 60% transition to senior one, meaning only 36% of those who started in primary one have gone to senior one. But those are the people we must design these products for. So if we can't understand Omuntu wa wansi, we are going to continue speaking English. And I think this is the challenge for me with MSC. Champion beyond your space, generate the knowledge, generate the products that can really serve Omuntu wa wansi, even if they don't have to be implemented by you. You are a government agency, you owe this to us to generate the knowledge that cuts across. I don't want to come back here and we're just speaking English. I want to hear those messages to say, on that day, you really brought him back to life to us as the ghetto people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. James, what are your parting shots?
I think I really enjoyed the feedback. Maybe let me conclude with one response one of our participants were raising, like how someone repay a loan from the next week, which is with 30% interest. So I think this is one of the core questions we're dealing with. My quick answer will be, let the MFI come with innovations, and this is time for it. Think about the innovation of M-Pesa in Kenya. Think about the reference I gave, giving the loans through mobile. So two issues, innovation at the two level. One is making the credit accessible The second is like the process. How do we give it? When we give it, can we give any other thing with it as a leverage to amplify the impact? So, like, of course, can we make sure, or like even from the policy perspective, can government come with any policy incentive for the MFI to reach to the ghetto economy, like a tax reduction incentive? It exists in the good practices. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Round of applause to our panel, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I want to put this to the record that friends like my friend from Masaka could have issues with Emyoga. Believe you me, every project has its flaws and all. But I want to rally all of us to clap for Emyoga program with a big round of applause. As a journalist, I've traveled this country and I've reported some stories about the Emyogas. And indeed, where there were flaws, they were rectified. Where there were issues, they were addressed. The whole issue was to understand how best we can deal with them. And I think